Eldritch abominations, being so terrifying, so powerful, and so incomprehensible that merely knowing its name would drive one insane. So let's ruin all that mysticism by explaining them in comedic detail. Anyways, there's some disagreement about what counts as an Eldritch abomination, so here's how we're qualifying it. Themes of lacking understanding or comprehension. For that reason, bosses from a series like Resident Evil, while primo horror, you understand what's going on. It's a mutating virus.
When you really get down to it, Lovecraft was the original clickbait.
What? How?
Well, he said that you wouldn't believe it.
Huh. Cult of the Lamb, the Lovecraftian hack and slash where the sheep becomes the shepherd and leads all sorts of woodland critters towards a life of endless worship and servitude. When you're not giving sermons, cooking food for your followers, or picking up crap to feed to your followers, you must go out and conquer the 4 bishops of the old faith on behalf of the figure you dedicated your cult to. An elder god ensnared beneath the surface named Narinder, better known as the One Who Waits. He makes you a vessel to the red crown he bestows upon you, and its power makes you an immortal being among the rest of the woodland creatures. I mean, you can still technically die, but the One Who Waits just brings you back to life. You know, standard video game logic. As it turns out though, the One Who Waits actually used to be the Old Faith's 5th bishop, slain for deviating to the ways of the Red Crown. Despite being told repeatedly that the other 4 bishops are inferior to him, you will eventually have to face the One Who Waits as the final boss of the game, provided you choose to actually fight him instead of giving up your crown like a bloody coward.
Boring!
First fate will have you fighting Narinder's disciples, who pose about as much a threat as the various mini-bosses you encounter throughout the game. Defeating them will cause the One Who Waits to break from his restraints and attempt to take you out himself. There's some rings of fireballs and spears from below the arena. Once you knock him out though, he ain't done. His final phase shows you his true eldritch form. Now 100 times his size, he sends his eyeballs out of their sockets and you have to slice them up permanently to dethrone this monstrous elder god. And that's somehow the least gross thing you'll see on this list. While the One Who Waits is a perfectly fine example of a Lovecraftian elder god, I can't put him any higher for the fact that, despite being the final boss, he proves to be no harder than his siblings. It's weird because throughout the game, he speaks poorly of the other 4 bishops and praises himself for being the only almighty being worthy of worship. Once you defeat him, however, he's reduced to the same level as your followers. This eldritch, godlike being now rests at the tip of your blade, and it's up to you to either go for the final blow or spare his life and indoctrinate him into your cult the same way you did to the rest of your followers. So yeah, the One Who Waits is clearly not the most unsettling part of Cult of the Lamb. That honor goes to the trailer for the Sins of the Flesh update, showcasing how you can make your followers bang. I guess it's an unwritten rule that all anthropomorphic animal games have to be horny now. Wonderful. Remember when quirky RPG Maker games used to be huge on the internet? You couldn't go one step around Tumblr without hearing about games like OFF or Humaniki. One of the ones we'll talk about for this list is Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass. This game is named after its 8-year-old protagonist with transformation powers in the dreamscape. And the final boss. Yes, the Pulsating Mass isn't just an object, it's an actual character. An ancient evil that has existed since the beginning of time, and it really, really wants Jimmy dead. It always talks about how it makes sure this 8-year-old's last moments are a shivering, sweat-soaked nightmare. Hey, it's words, not mine. The Pulsating Mass terrorizes Jimmy throughout the whole game, taking the form of his many different fears. A dog that mutates into a monster, an old stuffed toy he stole and still feels the guilt over, an evil chancellor from an old video game, and even a school principal! This culminates at the end of the game, where you travel through the Pulsating Mass itself, and it's revealed to have completely taken over Jimmy's brother, Buck. In a previous fight, Buck would waste turns fighting against the pulsating mass, but you don't get that luxury anymore. He hits like a truck here and combines all the gimmicks of the pulsating mass's previous forms. Progressively higher HP drain from the Mutt, using moves to specifically counter Jimmy's form just like the Chancellor, and even having a squadron of brain bats more coordinated AI than the principal's fleet of them. Defeat Buck and you'll free him from the pulsating mass's control, at the cost of your other family getting absorbed into it. Taking on the fleshy, writhing core, the mass can still fight back in this form. It'll take the image of Jimmy's family members as it loses health, all in an attempt to crush his spirit before finally killing him.
How did I raise such a stupid boy?
I think I'll just die if that's okay.
I'm so disappointed in you, Jimmy. Pushed through the mass, and Jimmy is left to fend for himself in a black void with grim reapers chasing him down. He manages to find the one thing that could defeat the mass, a book simply called The Secret Knowledge, which he manages to decipher just in the nick of time, destroying the mass from the inside out and leaving the game with a happy ending. Or so it seems. In true Eldritch fashion, it's not quite clear how this defeats the mass, but as I said, it's an 8-year-old's imagination. Don't expect anything more than the MacGuffin to save the day. So why is something like this so low? Well, on top of the true fight with the mass being pretty easy, a major reveal shortly before the final act of the game is that Jimmy is a cancer patient, and this whole game is his dying dream. This makes the pulsating mass essentially how he views his cancer, an unstoppable force that wants him dead. While it's an excellent metaphor, it takes the sting out of it a little. It makes it feel less like an eldritch monster and more like Diet Gygus. Huh, wonder what that tastes like. For this entry, I'd like to talk about an RPG developed by Square for the Super Nintendo. The other one. The other one. The other one. The other one. Perfection. Chrono Trigger has such a wide variety of bosses that it's not even funny. And if we're talking about Eldritch bosses, you know we have to look at the destroyer of all life itself, Lavos, an alien parasite that crash-landed to Earth in the year 65 million BC, which wouldn't be the only time that's happened on one of Square's titles. The parasite was given its name by the chief of the Loka tribe, Isla, who derived its name from the root words fire and big. I'm sorry, Lavos' name translated is fire big?
Darn it, change your name, please. That's not scary, and I'm embarrassed to say it.
Anyways, Lavos is the main antagonist of Chrono Trigger, and appears twice in the game, first in the Ocean Palace, then in 1999 as the final boss. Its fight consists of 3 phases. The first is the Outer Shell, which, fun fact, was modeled after Paluda, a mythical beast from French mythology. Your objective in this phase is to create an opening for you to go inside of Lavos' outer shell. Getting there ain't easy, however, as Lavos comes with such attacks as Rain Destruction, which does massive amounts of damage. Oh, and when you fight Lavos the second time around, he will copy certain attack patterns from previous bosses, before fighting you with his normal attacks. If you're able to get past this, you'll be able to enter the outer shell where you'll find Lavos itself, and thus, the second phase begins. Here, you must cut off Lavos' arms and then hit it enough times to unlock its true form, the Lavos Core. Here, Lavos has the power to manipulate the flow of time and space itself, and its attacks change depending on the point of time it takes us to. You have to defeat the Lavos Pod, the Center Pod, and the Lavos Core to truly take down Lavos once and for all. What gets Lavos on the list isn't just its parasitic nature, but the fact that, well, a parasite should not have the power that Lavos has. Heck, even though it's called a parasite throughout the game, that's really more of a function rather than what it actually is. What is it actually?
I have no idea.
The best way I could describe it is if a xenomorph laid its eggs in a sea urchin. And that's me being nice. If our recent Darkest Zelda Moments videos taught us anything, it's that when it comes to creepy, horrifying scenes within Hyrule, it's not going to be in Hyrule, and we're going to go back to Termina for Majora's Mask. Can you blame it? Just look at all it's got going for it. The freaky ambiance, the overarching threat, the dark lore revelations, and the freakier imagery. Anyone who said this game didn't freak them out even once is either lying or not a Zelda fan. So why do I bring this up here? Well, After all this destruction this titular menace has caused, we're taking the final battle to the moon against the beastly mask itself. What's that you say? That thing wasn't unnerving enough? No problem, how about we give it tentacles and turn it into a two-eyed mini-horde flying purple people-eater? As you progress through the phase, his posse of boss remnants come back him up and Majora himself gets fiery beam attacks. The good news is if you manage to snag the fierce deity's mask, you could pretty much cheese the fight entirely. But if you don't have the mask, switch to Zora Link and start checking them boomerang stacks. After you smite him a few times, he transforms again, only this time
it's got chicken legs!
And it's also probably the easiest phase of the brawl. All it does is run and shoot, so it's like a dealer's choice how you want to shut him up. But naturally, we saved the most difficult phase for last. Yeah, Majora doesn't like folks making fun of chicken legs, so he bulked up and grew a scare-your head with 2 deadly tentacle arms. He's just all around the area whipping you with them. You'll just stun him long enough to get a few hits in. Just enough times, you'll put an end to this nightmare for good. And now, this is a great fight. Great design, great story, great everything. But I'd have to say the Eldritch value isn't as prevalent with how the fight itself plays out. In all fairness, he maintained a threatening, fearful presence throughout most of the game, so it probably wasn't needed here. However, the high-pitched shrieking and the hideous new head popping out definitely caused a few jitters. The Ancestor is a constant presence throughout Darkest Dungeon. In addition to serving as the game's narrator, he's also responsible for most of the bosses you face. Pretty much every foe you encounter was in some way caused by him. Eventually you come to the titular location of the game and the game's final quest. Long story short, the Ancestor has been manipulating you from beyond the grave this entire time. The whole journey was just to get you to sacrifice your heroes to its master, the Heart of Darkness. The fight is long, but also very atmospheric. You start off with the Ancestor sending wave after wave of clones after you, with the usual narration replaced by him taunting you. Eventually, the titular heart emerges and just kinda sits there. Oh, that's a bit of a letdown.
Behold the heart of the world.
Alright, now that's an Eldritch abomination! In addition to looking downright terrifying, the Heart of Darkness gains one of the most dangerous attacks in the game. Come unto your maker. This is a guaranteed, unblockable, instant death attack. No amount of dodge or death blow resistance will save you. Sounds like pure BS, right? Well, here's the interesting thing. You can choose who it hits. This turns it from one less middle finger from RNGesus to a tense decision. Just who do you sacrifice to win? And unless you go in with 2 or fewer heroes or stack an insane amount of buffs, you're guaranteed to have to deal with it. Twice. Admittedly though, this fight is relatively easy. Even with the whole guaranteed instant death thing, it's one of the game's less harrowing fights. Heck, some people even managed to solo it. But honestly, that's not a bad thing in this case. After all the pain you went through to get here, it's a welcome reprieve. The quest only consists of this fight, so you're free to go all out. But in the end, it's ambiguous if you really won. It's implied that the heir will go down the same path as the Ancestor and become a servant for the heart. Moreover, it's implied that the estate itself is caught in a time loop. So different playthroughs are different loops? Does that mean it's like Dark Souls where the people who went hollow are the equivalent of rage quitters? The lore thickens. When we talk about Lovecraftian-inspired games, there's pretty much one title that's bound to come up. Bloodborne. Taking place in, say it with me folks, a once great kingdom that fell to mankind's ego and fallen gods beyond human comprehension. Yes, it's a Soulsborne plot. Though Bloodborne's take on its gods goes really far to the disturbing. So, of course, Bloodborne lore is a messy topic, but what's relevant here is that in the Yharnam, the people gained a religious fascination with these beings called Old Ones. Alright, yep, on the nose. The people's worship of these beings went so far as to take in the blood of these beings to ascend their humanity, and, predictably, this went wrong fast. So when their queen named Yharnam, as well, became pregnant with an Old One, oh, well, that's definitely not gonna go wrong. In order to get to the child Murgo, you have to dive into the Nightmare, a realm created in a twisted way to ascend the mind beyond the body. Finding Murgo, well, it's just a baby. Nothing really too imposing except, well, you're not fighting Murgo. Meet Murgo's wet nurse, a semi-old one, we think, tasked with caring for and raising this baby eldritch abomination. To take down the old ones, you gotta go through her. She looks like a floating cloak with 6 arms, wielding 6 sickles with such skill that would make General Grievous envious. Wow, my jaw feels weird after saying that. It's almost like whatever her true form is, it's invisible to human comprehension, and this is just what we can interpret. As for her attacks, well, Wet Nurse can darken the battlefield, making even seeing what she's doing even harder, and can even bust out temporary clones that can very easily overwhelm you. Like all FromSoft bosses worth their salt, Murgo's Wet Nurse poses quite the challenge, made harder by just figuring out what it's even gonna do. Survivor Onslaught and manage to take down the Wet Nurse, and you get a chilling sequence where, slowly, Murgo's cries, which could be heard throughout the battle, slowly cease before the Nightmare Slain text pops up. It almost begs the question, how real even was the Wet Nurse? Was it actually a physical caretaker for Murgo, or some warped defense mechanism that borders the line between existence and non-existence? What's even stranger is once you kill her, the corpse of Viola, Gascoigne's wife who held a very similar music box to the one that plays as the Wet Nurse's boss theme, vanishes without explanation. Lesson learned, never trust a higher power in a FromSoft game. Actually, you know what? Just don't live in a FromSoft game. Sounds like it sucks. And to something more grounded in reality, sort of. All the backers are currently on the Discord chatting up a storm because they have early access to a sample of the fight music by Brandon Yates and Kizakoto, as well as exclusive screenshots of the fight. Again, we'll release the pre-fight animatic to the public once we reach 50% of our goal, and people who support the project will get to see it first. We're also going to start a Starfire vs. Blaze fan art contest, and there are prizes. Third place will get a sprite building in the fight themed the way they want. Second place will get the previous reward, plus a 10-minute call with the crew. First place will get the other rewards, plus their artwork will be showcased in the video itself with a shout out to the artist by us right before the fight. You can submit any type of art, pixel, hand-drawn, as long as it's about Starfire and Blaze being friends or foes, it qualifies. Either post on the Ko-fi page, post in the Discord, or post on X/Twitter using the hashtag Starfire vs. Blaze or at joshscorcher to enter. We're aiming for a December release, but we still need a lot of support to get this baby finished. Please support the project on Ko-fi and we'll be able to show you something amazing. In the Castlevania series, Dracula is a constant mainstay as the primary antagonist who haunts the Belmont family, as well as mankind as a whole. Throughout each generation, a new herald is selected by the progenitor of this cycle to become the Dark Lord himself. We can even see the potential influences of this progenitor throughout various installments of the series, taking form of a mysterious void or an all-seeing eye. Eventually, one such fate befalls Soma Cruz, and the young man doesn't exactly conform with open arms. Hence, he sets out to find the source of the cycle of Dracula and vanquish it to free himself from this fate. His journey will lead him to encounter the entity behind the curtains itself, Chaos. Okay, first off, look at this thing. The 16-bit Geiger art style coupled with the uncanny way the sprites move just hits the right amount of trippiness. It's awesome. Chaos begins the fight by stealing your collective Enchanted Bullet and Guardian Souls. And with them, the 3 bodies will try to suck up your MP, swarm you with a flurry of bullets, and hurl a big old gargoyle at ya. Once you get them off your back, you enter the second phase, where you fight Chaos's core, protected by its 4 eyes. Dang. Didn't know Chaos was a nerd! Disabling each eye will lower Chaos's defense, but doesn't leave it completely unguarded, as it can still overwhelm you with spikes, homing orbs, and a morbid serpent slithering about. Talking about the fight itself doesn't do enough justice to how fast-paced and fun it really is. Between that and the strange, abstract entities the fight keeps throwing at you, it really lives up to the moniker of Chaos. What a grand way to end the journey of one of the series' most prolific incarnations of Dracula. The Jester. Once a respected and unassuming royal servant, has now become synonymous with the most chaotic and dangerous villains in fiction. I mean, I'm the fiery Joker, this is news to me. These master showmans of chaos are always a treat to see do their devilishly evil deeds. Today on stage is the rather obscure harlequin known only as the Gourmet. Hailing from the indie game Mago, the game's story is deviously simple. The Gourmet is hungry, and his meal of choice today is a princess, who just so happens to be your girlfriend. Venturing forth in the game that feels like it could be on the Game Boy Advance or DS, nothing prepares you for what happens when you reach the Gourmet's lair. Going through a castle that strangely seems to mesh exposed flesh and bone with architecture and is littered with skeletal remains, the Gourmet's dwelling seems more alive than expected. Reach the man of the hour, you make it just in time for dinner, and you're on the menu. At first, nothing seems off, just a standard 2D platformer boss. Beat him down and the Gourmet pulls a Majora. The mask was in control the whole time and... Oh, what am I even looking at here? Yeah, the Gourmet has less jester and more Cthulhu-esque abomination that is now very, very hangry. The castle gives way to what looks like an endless sea of bones of the Gourmet's past victims. The Gourmet throws out giant lasers, dons a demonic iron mask to try and ram you, and even shoots out this weird, viney, Kirby boss-esque tongue at you. All else fails, we'll try to just chomp you down. Beat him back, and the Gourmet takes a page out of the pink puffballs book and decides, yes, time to activate someone's fetish. You're in the belly of the beast now, and he's not even done. So, remember when I said his castle was all fleshy and bony? Well, guess where you are now. The implications of that can wait, because you now have to use your mecha to better his grotesque shape-shifting uvula thing with a concerning amount of faces for a uvula to have.
Oh, so it's a girl house. What?
This horrifying face has him grow spikes and try to slam into you, puke up more vines that immediately grow massive shootout exploding eyeballs, and he can stick these giant valve monsters on you? Okay, is his entire body sentient? Survive the onslaught of his digestion tract and you turn into a penguin, long story, to run as the Gourmet chases you down his spinal cord in the form of this spiky rock thing bearing his face. Is it his brain? His heart? Why is it duplicate? Oh, who knows? Shoot it! Shoot it! Destroy this, you finally make it to the deepest part of the Gourmet's innards and find your girlfriend trapped in a disturbing mound of flesh with eyes everywhere. When is it gonna end? You blast this with magic and save her, destroying the Gourmet for good. You got a lot of nerve being alive. The Gourmet is somehow still kicking despite you destroying his core and blowing him up from the inside. His castle crumbles around you. You now turn into a bird and haul it as your girlfriend charges one last spell that finally puts the Gourmet down for good. So, let's unpack this. Over the course of this boss fight, the Gourmet mutates into this horrific form, eats you, and implies his entire castle might be an extension of his body or will or whatever, survives having his insides blown apart, and only goes down after 4 phases. Is any of this elaborated on? Does any of it make sense? No, nothing about this Chaos Heartspawn is ever explained. Just a 4-course meal of utter hell from this unknown gem of a game. Well, if we're going to talk about the Eldritch, we have to dip our toes into some uncharted territories. Don't worry, I'll do my best to keep it as kosher for your viewing as possible. Don't let me down now, editor. Fear and hunger is dreadful. If you come into this game expecting it to go easy on you from either a story or a gameplay perspective, then you're not playing it for the right reasons. We come here to see the crooked, the twisted, and the truly depressing. Case in point, the final boss of Ending A. Once upon a time, humanity was governed under the influence of the old gods of fertility and destruction. Eventually, a knight named Lagarde grew tired of their ways and sought to bring forth a new age of man. To do this, he procreates with the new god Nilvan to conceive the ideal vessel for a deity known as the Ancient One to reside within. Little did they know, what they had created would turn out not to be what anyone would have expected. Fast forward to present time, you venture through the dungeons to rescue the mysteriously disappeared Lagarde, which leads you to come across his child in question. A girl, afraid and starving. Her mother requests that we take the girl to the heart of darkness, and when we do, we finally see her ascend. The Ancient One reveals itself, deforming the girl's body as she begins to grow these crooked limbs. The sight is unpleasant enough, but it's only just the beginning. In the next phase, she transforms into an armless statue, and afterwards, a mutated one. The transformation keeps getting more and more bizarre, and it peaks at the fourth phase into a horrifying multi-armed abomination. Finally, you reach the last phase, where it becomes a scarecrow.
Congratulations, Mum. You're going to give birth to the destruction of Gotham.
Strangely tame looking, considering what we've seen earlier. Although it makes perfect sense if you consider the symbolism. Scarecrows are made to chase away crows from crops, scaring them away and leading them to starve. A very fitting form to uphold for one such entity who bears its name as the god of fear and hunger.
Didn't think I'd be able to work the title in, did you?
Don't let optimized playthroughs fool you. This fight is far from easy. You're forced to start with only 3 party members as the girl leaves your team, so you're only getting that unless you have a way of summoning a 4th one. With limited hands on your deck, you have to watch out for a flurry of dangerous attacks, and the final phase even has a nigh-lethal coin toss that can drain an ally's mind. There are, however, ways of making this fight a bit easier. Despite the transformation, the girl is still conscious. Had you shown kindness to her throughout the game, she would remember and skip a turn for you. But regardless of the outcome, there is no defeating the god of fear and hunger. You have gone deep, too deep into the dungeon, facing an entity beyond your own strength and understanding. You are destined to fall here. So as an act of mercy, the god takes what's left of you into the bottom of the depths, where you're surrounded by a bed of flowers and can only spend your last moments deceasing under the scarecrow's foot while she comforts you. The god of fear and hunger defines eldritch horror, an uncharted otherworldliness that continues to surprise us for who she is, what she could be, and what she would do. And that unknowable nature is what kept us from being able to truly conquer it. The craziest part about all of this is that Lagard's goal to usher in a new age of man still worked. As the events of Fear and Hunger 2 Termina, this deity became the pillar that motivates mankind to fight for innovation at the cost of cruelty and bloodshed. They are finally granted a god who understands them, one who has witnessed firsthand what motivates them to stand against all odds. Valuing their determination to survive and progress, she offers them the greatest gift to come from a deity like herself. The gift of suffering. Nyarlathotep, Persona 2. Good build-up and design, but still fails to spamming fusion spells. Void Termina, Kirby. Makes sense that the ultimate eldritch horror of Kirby is Kirby himself. Photoshop Flowey, Undertale. Who would have thunk putting a bunch of PNGs together would make a Lovecraftian art? Junie, Lake Juniper. This atmospheric marvel is made in dreams? I wish I could put it on here if there's only more of a proper fight. Lady Domitresque, Resident Evil Village. Wait, how could a beautiful woman be an eldritch Oh my god, what is that? And swiping left. When my team and I are writing these lists, it almost feels like 2 wolves are within me, fighting for dominance. One is the wolf of integrity, in which I go with the candidate that honestly represents and fits the criteria I set out. The other wolf is the wolf of entertainment, where I select the candidate that you guys will find the most interesting. In every single list I make, these 2 wolves are constantly fighting. And in this case, the wolf of integrity won out. Mother frickin' Gygus!
Quiet! Hi.
Quick recap for those who somehow don't know. Gygus is the main baddie for the original Earthbound and its prequel, Earthbound Beginnings, an alien raised by humans and tasked to destroy Earth after one of said humans stole vital information from his people's technology. Years later in Earthbound, a group of chosen kids get a warning from the future that says, he did it. Gygus became so powerful that he successfully conquered all of Earth, and the only way to beat him was to travel back in time to the big bad deity's home turf, the Cave of the Past. At this point, we've only heard mentions of the Big G without even seeing him, but every passing mention of him has been met with blind terror, at best. We'll give him this though, He's got a nice taste for decorating an evil base, complete with distorted Beach Boys music. Unfortunately, the piece can't last forever. We find Gygas in his devil's machine with his right-hand stooge Pokey by his side. Gygas at this point is invulnerable, so we have to beat up Pokey for a while until he turns off the devil's machine. According to him, if we saw Gygas' true form, we'd be petrified. Actual child, please. What's so scary about a big old gray-headed alien? Wait, go back! So, this is Gygas now. He's grown so powerful that he mutated to this. His mind is completely shattered and he cannot think rationally anymore. Yet he obliterates the universe in the far future. So we have to make our stand here and now. If you can stare at your screen long enough without feeling sick, you'll find that Gygas' attacks are incomprehensible and unpredictable. At some point, your own moves stop working on him in general. The only thing you could do by then is pray.
Pick a god and pray.
Like, actually pray. You gotta reach out to 9 folks on Earth to help you in one last-ditch effort to snuff the object of legitimate nightmares out, and then... Oh no! Did my game crash? Now I gotta go through all that over again. Oh, thank goodness I don't gotta do that all over again. Wait, that's how I know I won? Gygas has been another recurring face in these countdowns, and it's for a good reason. He's practically the poster boy for Eldritch abominations. You know, if you can find one to capture all that, ugh. His appearance is horrific, his power and influence are terrifying to the point where even saying his name feels risky, and his very conception is traumatizing. For context, creator Shigesato Itoi based Gygas on a scarring childhood experience where he accidentally walked in on a gruesome scene in an adult movie. He took that unfortunate incident and turned it into art, creating one of the most infamous and terrifying Eldritch bosses in all of video game history. I'm JoshScorcher, and... Seen it? Yeah, kill it! Wait, don't kill it!
God.
Hey everyone, this is Josh. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share the video around. Please check out my other social media like my Twitter, Twitch, and Tumblr. Check out my other channels such as Joshua Burner for reactions and other stuff, Dragon Fighter Gaming for tabletop, and Bob Equestria for cartoons. Consider checking below the video and donating to my Patreon, Streamlabs for my merchandise, or becoming a YouTube member. Thanks for watching.